I'll
All
join.
right, so we're gonna get the party started here. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Ramp Up, a special edition webinar. We're really excited to have you guys on with us today. We're going to be discussing some great things. We've got Aren Johnstone, who's the VP of Ops here at Franchise Ramp, Jennifer Sweet, who is a sales executive, and Brian Holmes, who's one of the co-founders of Franchise Ramp. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be reviewing, Aren's going to talk about the impact of the election on digital marketing with Aren. Brian will talk about digital marketing in the time of COVID-19, little Q&A with him and Jennifer. And then I'll have some questions and review some information about Franchise Ramp. So with that being said, I'll let Aren take it away.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate it. So I think it's really crucial as we go into Q4 of 2020 to understand a little bit more about just how Facebook works and how they actually charge us as advertisers and how your money is spent. So before we get into how the election and how the holidays might affect your business and your individual market, we're going to really take a step back to the very beginning and really review how Facebook charges us. So Facebook charges on what's called a CPM model. So it means that they are actually charging us for impressions. And then whenever users engage with those views, so whenever your ad shows up, you do not get charged more if someone clicks the ad, if they submit a lead, if they go to your website. We are simply charged for those impressions. And Facebook charges a varying price for each impression. So if in different states, the cost is different per impression, and different times of year, the CPM changes. And it's really based on an auction system. I misspelled that there. It's not an action system. It is an auction system. I do apologize. And so what an auction system means is that there's limited space, or there's a resource or something of value, an asset, and then people are bidding on that. And so in Facebook, the main resource is really newsfeed space. So as people are scrolling through their newsfeed on Facebook or Instagram, there's a certain number of spots available for advertisements to show. Let's say it's every 1 in 5 posts, there's an opportunity for an ad to show. And so there's limited availability there. So there's scarcity. And so the more people that are bidding on that specific spot, so let's say for that person who's actually logged on to Facebook, the more that Facebook will charge for that impression. And so it really is just an auction, not an action system. And so in Q4 of basically every year with holiday marketing, your CPM cost, or cost per impression, goes up simply because of demand. And so this year being an election year, it adds an extra layer of demand and a little bit more complexity based on individual markets, especially correlated to swing states, which we'll get into in a second. And this graph here, before I continue, is a graph of CPM cost over the last 13 months taken from all Franchise Ramp accounts. It represents over $4 million in total ad spend, all in the fitness and health and beauty space. So it's very relevant to the cost of your advertising, and a very good prediction for what's going to happen in the next coming months. Todd, next slide, please. So some really high level numbers about the election and how it's going to and currently impacting your advertising and advertising in general. So based on the models and different predictions from major data companies and political companies, they estimate that there will be a total of $7 to $10 billion in total ad spend from the election in 2020. And an estimated 20 to 40% of that will be on digital. It's gone up every single time I come out with a new report. More and more is being spent on digital because of the pandemic. The different candidates cannot travel around the country. They can't do the traditional door-to-door or rallies. So more is being spent on digital this year than ever before. So that gives you a range of somewhere between 1.4 and about $3 billion, depending on the percentage and the amount that we spend on digital. And to put that in perspective, that's somewhere between 2 and 4% of the entire digital marketing or digital ad spend budget of the entire US. So that's all businesses all year to every single person in the entire US. So that's a huge percentage of the total marketing budget and definitely has an impact on the digital marketing space and the demand for those news feed impressions. Todd, next slide, please. The other really interesting thing about the election is that it's not distributed evenly across the country like holiday marketing. So holiday marketing is going to be very evenly distributed, basically based on wherever population is. So if someone is, doesn't matter where they are in the country, it's going to go to people who are willing to buy products. However, with the election, majority of the spend is going to be distributed into the swing states, or really the 6 major swing states. So Florida, Indiana, Iowa, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. And that is changing a little bit as we go. And there's no technical way to get an idea of what percentage of available spots are being used or purchased by political advertising on digital, but that information is public for TV ad time. And so a study by Kantar on the last election, they took a sample of 15 markets in those 6 states. And during peak week before the election, last election, the 15 markets or cities basically averaged 48% of all commercial space was purchased by political advertising. And over a 16-week period, so leading up to the election, 20% on average in those states of all TV available commercial spots were purchased by election. And so in those specific states, or markets, you're going to see an extremely high CPM cost, because you're having an a higher than market normal auction system on the available space. And the space does not change. There's not magically more users or more newsfeed spaces in those markets. There's still the same number of people. There's just more money and more people bidding on those available spaces. So this next slide, Todd, here is a really great map that's provided by Kantar, and it gives you a really good idea as a franchisee of where you might fall in the spectrum of safe states to toss-up states. And this is provided whenever we send this webinar out to everyone. We'll send out a link to this Kantar report, which has a very detailed document, and you can get this map as well. And so moving on, Todd, what does this actually mean to you as a franchisee? That's the really important part here is, first of all, you really need to understand the political climate in your state, and understanding your market is never more important than in the Q4 as we approach the election, and actually even a little bit beyond the election. So if you're in those states and you know that demand is going to rise, then you should expect some things to happen. So first of all, you should expect week-to-week fluctuations. They can't maintain the amount of spend every single week. But in peak week, if it's 48% of all spaces are purchased by political ads, and on an average it's 20, one week you might have a high lead cost, and the next week it might go down, purely because the competition for available spaces is so volatile. And then what we're doing here at Franchise Ramp to kind of counter the CPM cost and improve your results, or keep them as steady as possible through all these, through the volatile fluctuations, we've implemented 3 major strategies. So the first strategy is implementing combined reach campaigns with lead gen campaigns. And so really high level, what that means is on Facebook, we can tell Facebook what we want to purchase or what we want to optimize for. So if we want to optimize for leads, that means that Facebook is going to show it at let's say during the day, not at night, to people in newsfeed where there's a big button. They can click the button, the form is big. That's the most likely to produce a lead. But that's also the space that all the other advertisers want. So the cost is significantly more expensive for that impression. We can also tell Facebook to optimize for, let's say, just reach. So that reach campaign is saying we want to reach as many unique people as possible. We don't care the time of day. We don't care if it's in newsfeed or on stories or on Messenger or on Facebook's, it's called Audience Network. So there are a range of affiliate sites and apps and mobile apps. So if we're optimizing for reach, so far in the last 2 months, those reach campaigns have averaged 1/10 the cost per impression that lead gen campaigns have averaged. Now, they don't get you the same number of leads, but for a very small portion of your budget, we can get that first impression very, very cheap. And then the second impression on newsfeed and a lead gen campaign, and our average cost per impression is significantly lower. So we're maintaining the reach or impressions in your market by being a little bit hacky, and trying to optimize Facebook's algorithm to get in front of the maximum number of people. The other thing that we're doing is we're trying to segment audiences to be much more specific. So instead of just doing broad audiences, which typically will work whenever CPM costs are lower, we're trying to segment men versus women, or older versus younger, and then having matching imagery or creative content that matches that audience. So the more specific we can be to that segment, the higher the engagement rate, which will counter the rising CPM cost. And then the third thing that we're doing is trying to work with all of our franchisees and our corporate partners on pulling a lever that is not often manipulated in franchising. So if the cost per impression goes up, after that, all we can control is the rate at which people might engage. So that's called click-through rate. But if your offer is not valuable, the other level that we can pull is manipulating your offer. So we're working with your corporate partners and starting to work more with their franchisees at potentially changing offers in markets that are going to be more affected by the rising CPM cost or fluctuations because of the election. And so in summary, getting more segmented on your audiences, optimizing for different things besides just leads, and priming your audience in your area so that they all know you're there before we ask them for their information. And then also trying to manipulate all the levers that we can to get you the best result cost possible. So can we change your offer? How can we increase engagement post impression? And that is all for my section here today. Thank you guys so much. Those articles will be included.
Aren, I think one interesting thing also to add that is like maybe the report focuses quite a bit on what could be like a statewide impact, but also local elections can also have a huge impact. You know, do you have House seat that's up and it's being heavily contested? Are there, you know, I've seen a lot more local campaigns being run than I ever have, you know, especially in 2016. So.
Yeah, that total ad spend is combined all elections. So it's going to be presidential, gubernatorial, and any of the House or Senate elections. So.
Well, Aren, thank you so much for, you know, kind of telling everybody what to expect and what Franchise Ramp is doing during this time. So next up will be our co-founder, Brian Holmes, and Jennifer Sweet, just doing a little Q&A. So go ahead, Jen, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. So Brian, you are obviously a franchising veteran. Tell us now about how many studios you have right now and where they're located.
So I have 5 studios in Sacramento, California market that I did want to share finally got to open on Monday. So after being closed for 6 out of the last 7 months, we were finally able to open all locations on Monday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Big
that
news
was
for us.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about why digital marketing is so important right now to all of our studios, especially during, you know, these COVID times.
You know, my studios, I think like a lot of studios have been really, really heavily impacted. In California, what we went through, which isn't necessarily unique, but some days feels a little bit unique, is we were closed for 3 months, allowed to open for the month of July, and then closed down, you know, since the end of July all the way through, you know, really the beginning of October. And in the first 3 months of that, you know, I think that we thought, all right, things are going to get back to normal. We're going to get a reopen. We had a great strategy and plan around it. We really transitioned quickly from, you know, in studio to online, had a huge Facebook group, had a bunch of people doing, you know, at home virtual training. And then when we reopened, you know, we actually had an awesome month. So the month of July was a great month for us. Tons of members came back. Everybody's really excited. We were profitable as an organization. Going through the second set of shutdowns has actually really, really hurt our business in the sense where, you know, we've lost, you know, close to 50% of our total member count prior to, you know, COVID. And I think the reason for me that digital marketing is more important than it has ever been as a franchisee is because I can't just rely on 100% of my members to come back. Even those people were happy, diehard, dedicated, you know, Pilates members that may come to the studio like 3 times a week or 4 times a week. They were just the hardcore, the most hardcore people. Some of those people and people who have been members of the studio, since the days that they opened, aren't coming back. And it doesn't mean that they're never going to come back. It just means in the short term, they aren't going to come back. And so digital marketing for me is about getting in front of people who have a higher risk tolerance and are not as concerned, I guess, about COVID as some of my members may be, because that's a primary reason that they're not coming back. It's not that they don't love Pilates, not that they don't see value in the services that they provide. They just have a high level of concern for, actually coming back in the studio, actually working out in the studio, having to wear masks, because that's part of our requirement is they have to wear, masks while they're working out. Maybe they just don't want to wear a mask while they're doing a Pilates class. And the best way to understand this was an experience that actually happened to me. So I went to an entrepreneurial networking thing about a month ago. And when I went into the session, they had a system. So they had a system where they gave out green bands, yellow bands, or red bands. Green bands were, it was okay to like high five and hug. Yellow was like elbows only. And red was like no contact whatsoever. And so essentially what we're doing from a digital marketing perspective is just trying to get in front of the type of people who are like green band people. Maybe they weren't Pilates people before, but they're sitting at home going stir crazy. I want to get out of their house. And so they need something to do. And showing up in their feed says, hey, we're open, we're still in business, and you can come and take a free class. So it's a great offer for somebody who's maybe never tried Pilates before, or bar, or spin, or, done eyelashes. I mean, it's just, that's who we're looking for right now is essentially the people who are green people.
No, I think you're 100% right. And as a franchisor customer and a franchisee myself, I know they're out there because, we've been finding them. And, and I think a lot of people can speak to that as well. In terms of what Franchise Ramp has been doing during this whole time, what would you say that we've been doing to win for our customers during, these times that are changing like every day? What would you say, we've been doing to stay effective?
Yeah, I think that our approach to COVID in this time period, I think has been very unique to most companies, either in our industry or in the business that we do, digital marketing or lead generation. We've actually went from 9 team members to 26 team members as a part of the Franchise Ramp organization. We, instead of like curling up in a ball and saying like, hey, COVID's impacting our business, we don't know, what the future is going to look like. We said, hey, let's utilize this time to learn, build processes, get better, hire more people, hire the best people we possibly can. Because it stinks for everybody who lost their jobs during COVID, but it's great if you want to hire great people, because there's a ton of them out there right now. They're available. We've got a recruiter working for us all the time, trying to find those people and add them to our team, which the better people that we have, the better our systems are going to be, the better the processes are going to be, the better results we're going to push and create for our franchisees.
Awesome. I mean, you added me to the team during this time.
That's
so
right. That's right.
Excited about that.
Best hire for sure.
Yes, don't tell anybody else, although I guess they can see it. I guess, I've got one last question. What is the biggest piece of advice that you have for franchisees right now?
So maybe a lot of the listeners don't know this because it's interesting. Like we're not doing a good job of like promoting the franchise world, but I have a podcast called The Franchise Story. And so we have almost 100 episodes that we've done where we've interviewed either franchisees or franchisors. And we just recorded the 100th episode yesterday, actually. And in those episodes I talked, so I'm a Liberty franchise. I was a Liberty franchisee first. I went from 1 location to 19 locations in that business. That's where I cut my teeth over a decade. It was a grind. I learned so much. And I interviewed the CEO and founder of Liberty on the podcast. And he said, we really dug deep into what does it take for somebody to be successful in franchising. And the number one attribute is grit. So we're kind of in a phase where, we all have to keep our head down. We have to really focus on getting through and making it to the other side of this. And it's an undervalued part of what it takes to be successful, is that grit of knowing like, hey, one foot in front of the other, we've got this.
I love that. I think that's awesome. I guess Todd, I'll send it back to you. Thanks, Brian. That was awesome.
Hey, thanks, Jennifer and Brian. And as Brian mentioned, he is host of the Franchise Story podcast. It's a great podcast. I would recommend for any franchisees out there who want to learn more. Brian does a great job. He's got some really cool people that have been on there, some high-performing franchisors and franchisees. So definitely give it a look. So, well, we've come to my favorite part where I get to actually talk. No, I'm just kidding. So just kind of wanted to give everybody who's on their call with us, some more information about Franchise Ramp. Obviously with Brian and as well as Peter Hansen, the co-founders of the company, they are current franchisees with Club Pilates. So that really gives us a distinct advantage. We came around about 3 years ago, and, we're formed out of, Brian and Peter saw a gap when they were doing some pre-sale on their studios and thought it'd be a great idea to be able to help other franchisees with this way. As Brian mentioned, one of the things is that we are a remote company. We're able to hire the best of the best. And the best of the best translates to over 50 years of digital marketing experience. And that really comes into play when we're planning out, what we're going to be doing for our clients. We're more than just a digital agency. We're truly talking to our franchisees, to our clients, as well as prospects. Hey, what are some other things that you're looking for? How can we make it easier for you? Developing different products. And we've got some really exciting products that are coming down the pipe over the next few months. I think that will really help and take a lot of people's locations to the next level. And just really innovative, team. We're always looking to win for our customers. And I think that's the key, where we're doing what's best for you. We're very proactive in what we do. We want to make sure that our customers are winning to the best of our ability. And these are things that all come into play when we talk about Franchise Ramp. So what we do and what we're focusing on, obviously with lead generation on Facebook and Instagram and Google, driving results that are going to matter. At the end of the day, it's all about driving memberships to you guys. And that's really what our focus is, creating audiences, geo-targeting to maximize the results, as Aren was talking about earlier, really dialing in on the audiences to get stronger leads that will then translate into more members. And that goes sort of into our, proactive approach to produce the results that truly matter most to you, as the franchisee. And I think the other thing that's really important is that you guys are so busy on a day-to-day worrying about what's going on with your franchise location, your studio. You have to deal with employees, you're dealing with clients of your own, and just kind of in the day-to-day, some are even, have secondary jobs that they're working through at the same time. Let us become your marketing department, allow you to focus on what's important out there for you. And I think those are the keys that we can truly take that over and take one less thing from your plate, allowing us to really drive results, and help you, sleep better at night in a sense. So we also wanted to say, as a thank you to everybody for joining our webinar today, that we're going to offer a special 25% off admin fee for your first month if you decide to reach out to us. You can reach out to us at sales@franchiseramp.com. If maybe you're someone who's gotten emails from our sales team in the past, if you want to just respond to those, you can do that as well. And we'll be happy to take you through in a more in-depth opportunity to talk about what we do, how we do it, and the things we're doing, especially in Q4, to really, make a difference. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up. So if anybody has any Q&A, I can answer that. I did get 2 questions so far. So if you want to type in.
Looks like there's a question from Bryce McTavish on, I'll read it out loud. I get targeting the green people who are open to getting out and are not so afraid that they're frozen in place. So what are the targeting tactics within Facebook to identify these people and reach them more frequently within a reasonable CPM cost? So that's a great question. I'm going to take that one. I'm just going to claim it. So I think it's important in Facebook to understand that we can target and kind of narrow the band on who inside of this range we're going to show ads to, but we never can control the delivery. So same way that you can control a billboard, like where in the city you're going to place that, you can't control who's actually going to drive by that. That's determined by Facebook. And so that concept, we get a lot of questions around targeting. We have been testing a variety of different things. Like you can affiliate with either typically brands, behavior, or people. So there's a lot of people affiliated with say the Make America Great Move Foundation on Facebook that we can target. Is probably going to have a higher likelihood of being associated to people who are more likely to get out and about. But again, that's not 100% perfect correlation, and there's really no perfect way to do that. The important thing is that you are getting impressions. So the same way that traditional marketing work, like Coca-Cola is going to do Super Bowl ads no matter what. They don't care if some of those people are not Coca-Cola drinkers or not soda drinkers, but there are people who are, and those people are going to be taking an action because they did see that impression. So we focus on two things. One, trying to find the best individual audiences or narrowing for your market. But we also want to keep total impressions pretty broad net so that anyone who might not engage in Facebook or might not like that Make America Great Again page is seeing your ad. And then it's really about ad copy and creative, and are we providing them with an image that is engageable? So we've tested quite a bit of different, so in summary, we've tested quite a bit of different targeting ideas, but we really want to focus on total reach, total impressions, and really how is that actually translating to members. So
thanks, Aren. I did get a question. If someone, should they consider taking their Facebook ad spend and moving it over to Google for the time being with the limited ad space on Facebook? Would you recommend that, or what course of action would you take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you have to start from what are the two platforms? What is the big difference between the two platforms? So Facebook by nature is what's called a discovery platform, and then Google is an intent platform. So all the green people, like the green band people, are going to be on Google, like very green band, are going to be the ones searching for the fitness studios. But then you have that whole spectrum of like the green people who might not be searching. They don't know what safety precautions your studio are taking, or that you're even open again, right? Like that's a huge question, is are you even open again? And so Facebook by nature, since you're paying for impressions, no user has to actually take an action to see an ad. You want to make sure, I wouldn't totally eliminate your Facebook budget. If it's not getting the results that you want, I would talk with your success manager about potentially changing strategies, trying to split budget, like maybe drop your budget and split the budget to focus on total impressions, total reach, and maybe work on a more engaging offer in your market.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see. Here we go. So from Craig James, how can one automate and dynamically shift, edit Facebook ads, and how can Franchise Ramp help to do the heavy lifting so I don't have to employ manual efforts by myself? Thanks.
Can one automate and dynamically shift, edit Facebook ads? There's a few ways for me to interpret that question. So, well, first of all, in Facebook, at any given time, we typically are split testing 2 copy variations and 3 to 5 different image variations, typically across multiple directions. So like some with mask, some without mask, to try to engage and let Facebook show it to the person who's engaging with that specific ad and copy variation. We can make bulk edits in Facebook. You don't want to automate ad edits, like at least in our internal platform, because there's so many customizations from market to market. Like before COVID, there were no market. It was just everyone running the same offer. Now it's variety of offers, variety of rules, mask, no mask, indoor, outdoor, open, closed. Yeah, there's quite a lot of variety. But Franchise Ramp, we really want to take all the heavy lifting off of you. So if you work with us, we're going to be doing all those tests proactively with, like, you don't have to be involved, and then we can report back to you on how that's performing, what's working, what's not working, and definitely try to take into account your understanding and conception of your market so that we are reaching the people who are most relevant to your business.
Yeah, and I think maybe to really directly answer the question in the sense of like the manual aspect of Facebook, it's highly manual. Like we have whole teams that they just do stuff like this. Cause if we could figure out, a way to make it work proof, like where it wasn't heavily lifting, we would have done that. And we figured out it's just very much like, you got to give Facebook a lot to work with. You got to be continuously changing ads. You got to be really in there and involved. There was a time period where Facebook could be run pretty hands off, let's call it like 2016. And you could put in, a couple ads, run them, and they would consistently work and generate results, like with kind of somewhat stable results. And that hasn't been that way for a long time. And with increased competition, it's gotten, to be even more of a hands-on game.
Yeah. So the biggest thing just to kind of have an extension on the manual effort, the biggest thing that's changed for us operationally throughout COVID is, besides the complexity of, open, close, mask, no mask, is just the lifetime of any given campaign. So if you have 100,000 people in your market, you'll say your 5-mile radius, and of those 100,000 people, 60,000 people are potential prospects. Well, now let's say even 10,000 of those are not willing to go to a gym. We've just continued to cut down your market size. And so what happens is that the ads saturate quicker, meaning that we have to change your creative, change your copy, try new things much, much faster to maintain results. So if you just leave an ad, like same as a billboard, the ad gets stale, cost goes up over time. It's not linear, but it does go up over time. And so we've had to really increase the rate at which we refresh campaigns. I think we're currently on track for about 10,000 campaigns this year. And even if we had the same number of locations pre-COVID, if that wouldn't have happened in 2020, we probably would have hit like 3,000 or 4,000. So it's over double the volume of work that we've had to output.
So I had another question come in as far as, what would you suggest a good budget being in order to stay relevant on Facebook during, the pre-election process?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So I think a lot of it depends on your potential market size and working with your success manager on how saturated your market is. If you're getting great results, don't lower your budget. Like if you're in a market, people are engaging with your offer. If the result cost is really high and you've worked with your success manager and we've tried 5, 10, 16 campaigns in a month to try to get it to work, you again can try to manipulate offer as a potential lever, or lower your budget, or just change the way that you're advertising. I wouldn't stop spending, because there are every day more and more people who are open to the idea of going back to a gym, and whoever they see first is going to be the gym that they go back to. So I would work with your brand and your success manager individually on that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like for a lot of the people that don't currently work with franchise rep on this call, success managers are just what we call, the people that work with our franchisees. So like if you're working with another digital marketing vendor, just partner with them, have regular conversations, give them feedback, and like work through the process. I think a lot of franchisees don't think about, they think maybe the solution is, if they're not getting the results maybe that they want, is just to move to another vendor. And in my opinion, no matter what vendor you are, it's actually to work with the vendor that you currently have, and try and, see if they can move the needle in the direction that you want to go. So
yeah,
Todd probably didn't want me to say that, but
I think it's a good point. There is no magic bullet. It really is just finding something that works for the time being, and it's just we're pushing the boulder up the hill and it falls back down. You have to refigure it out all the time. And the good franchise ramp, we've really built a team that's able to do that quickly. So
I guess that's all the questions we have for now. Thank you everybody for coming on. Brian, Jennifer, Aren, thanks for taking the time as well to help with the education of this. And like I mentioned, if you have any other questions or want to reach out to anybody, just contact us, sales@franchiseramp.com. We'll be more than happy to answer questions, as well as, with anything, basically, any kind of questions or anything. So with that being said, we really appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to potentially speaking to you guys in the near future.